Hey guys, it's your girl Alicia. So it is Sunday morning and we are not doing that rice and peas business. As a matter of fact, today we're doing some oxtail soup. You see my oxtail? It's not trimmed because it just so happened that I bought it and it's not trimmed, and I'm not going to trim it. I'm going to brown this oxtail ahead of time because oxtail soup is what we're going to be making. I know you're saying, Alicia, you crazy. What is she talking about, oxtail soup? Yes, it's going to be oxtail soup. So we're not trimming our oxtail. We're going to powder season this to your heart's content, and we're going to brown it beautifully before we pressure cook this baby to tenderize the meat for the soup. In this soup, it's not going to be fancy. Celery going in, and of course all Jamaican soups have a pumpkin base. All our soups have a pumpkin base, people. Yes, we put pumpkin in every single one of our soups. So pumpkin, carrots, turnip. I have some green beans from my sister's backyard. I have scallions, so I have some backyard finds in here. You see the scallion right out of the dirt. And then I'm putting a couple pieces of sweet potato in this soup. Scotchy from the yard as well. And we're going to be putting in some corn, but at this point now I have my corn frozen in the freezer, so you'll see the corn appearing in the soup later. I have a nice piece of yellow yam that I'm going to be putting in, and to top the soup off we're going to have a couple spinners, which is just some spinning white flour dumpling. All right, so stay tuned for my oxtail soup. Okay guys, so this is our oxtail, brown and the fat rendered. Beautiful. See those nice bits of brown on there? That's gonna give your soup a wonderful flavor. Now I do have my celery cut up. I have my turnip. I have my pumpkin, green beans, and I have onions and just a couple pieces of pepper here. And what we're going to be doing with this oxtail now, remember oxtail is hard, so we're going to just cover it with water. We're covering it with water because this is going to be in the pressure cooker for the next 25 minutes to a half an hour. We want this meat fork tender and falling off the bone for your soup. So you see the brown bits that browned the oxtail is already forming a broth, right? A nice brown flavored, caramel flavored broth. Now all this we're going to be dumping in. Okay, all this is going to be pressured in to not just flavor the oxtail but make a banging broth for our soup. All right, so we start with water as the broth, but as all of this boils, and it's going to be I want all this stuff to be broken down. This pumpkin is going to be broken down. The turnip, I don't like the taste of turnip, but I know it gives the soup a good flavor, but I don't want to bite into my turnip, so I put it in, and it's going to be pressure cooked, and it's just going to break apart. You will barely find it later on in the soup. So at this point we will be covering this pot for the next half an hour, 25 minutes to a half an hour, and we're going to pressure this until it is fork tender. We'll be back. Okay, so our pressure cooker's been going for about a half an hour, so I've turned it off and I just leave the heat in it until that pressure gauge, see this pressure, when the pressure gauge is up like this, that means there's a lot of heat inside. When the pressure gauge falls, you know it's time. You can open the pressure cooker safely. Oops, drop the little part, the whistle on top. I dropped it in there. All right, so So I turned it off to get the air pressure out of the pot. So now I'm gonna turn it back on. All right, give it a nice stir. All the vegetables look like they're falling apart. And what I'm doing is just breaking, using the ends of my wooden spoon to break the pumpkin. Just break the pumpkin. You're trying to make a nice broth. What I'm also gonna do is check to see how tender the oxtails are. Yeah, look, fork tender. See? Fork tender, that's what you want. You don't want them falling off the bone yet, because remember, you have a whole nother batch of vegetables that's gonna go in to oil in the soup. So you want just to make, when you're taking the pressure cooker lid off, you just want everything fork tender but not falling off the bone yet. The fall off the bone is later on, because you still have all the stuff to cook in there. All right, at this point I'm going to add water all the way. Because that's our broth. Now it's time for the soup. So I'm going to put in my corn. I'm gonna put in my backyard thyme and scallion, and I put the scallion in whole because it's gonna boil, and once the flavors are out of it, I'm gonna fish the whole scallion whole out of the pot, so I don't cut it up. I'm also gonna go ahead and put in the rest of my green beans. I'm gonna put in some more pumpkins because I want, these pumpkins are not gonna be boiled out like the first set. They'll, you know, you'll find a couple pieces of pumpkin in your plate. So going in for the last boil, I'm putting in my carrots. If you notice, I didn't make my carrots too small. I made them nice and chunky because I want to see carrots at the end of the cooking. So I'm putting in the carrots. All right, and I'm gonna bring this to a boil. I'm gonna peel my yellow yam and add. So I'll be back the next time I decide to add another layer of vegetables. So we're gonna cover this again. No more pressuring. I'm just gonna cover it so it starts boiling. So I'm just putting a lid on top but not closing it. I'm trying to bring it to a boil. So I'll be back with the third layer of vegetables and the spinner's dumpling that we're gonna be putting. Okay, so our soup is up to a roaring boil, and I just gave it a nice stir, and I added in the yellow yams. So you're gonna cut your yellow yams in just nice sized pieces, not too big, not too small, because you want to see it show up at the end of your cooking. See, the oxtails is still intact. And at this point, after we've brought it up to a roaring boil, it's been boiling for like the last 10 minutes, I am gonna go ahead and add in our This is sweet potatoes. We're gonna add our sweet potato in. Give it a good mix. I'm thinking I should have gotten a bigger pot, but maybe not. All right, I'm gonna add in, this is coconut cream, the Grace Pure coconut cream. It comes in like a brick pack, and I'm just gonna break up the bricks, and I don't want to lose them yet in the pot because I want them to dissolve. So I'm just gonna put them right on top here, and I'm gonna recover the pot and wait for them to dissolve. So we've basically added in everything. The only thing that's left to add in is our dumplings, our spinners, and our cock soup, and that goes in at the end. So now we're just gonna have this continue to boil, and all the flavors and the vegetable being cooked and gelling together. All right, so I'm gonna put a cover on that and just leave it to boil for like, on medium. We're putting it on medium to boil for like another 15-20 minutes or so before we come back. Okay, here we go. Now we're looking for those little cubes of coconut to see if they were boiled out. Yeah, the sweet potatoes are cooked. You know what? I'm gonna take them out because I don't want them to be overcooked. They're already fully cooked. I should have actually been putting them in like right now. I'm gonna take those sweet potatoes out because I don't want them to break apart. Sweet potatoes are kind of on the soft side. They're not as hearty as the yellow yams. So you see how they're falling apart. So I'm gonna just take them out and put them on the side, and we can re-add them later just before we are ready to eat. So this is our oxtail soup, looking really nice and rich. At this point, I'm going to be adding in some mixed vegetables just for color. So it's frozen mixed vegetable. I'm going to be adding that in. In goes that pepper. And we're going to be adding in those dumplings. Here we go. Uh-oh. This is sticky. So I'm gonna be adding these dumplings. I might have to re-roll them. I need 2 hands to re-roll them because I have them here and they were sticking a little bit. So I'm gonna re-roll them, add them in, and this soup is gonna be boiling for another 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, so as I add that last dumpling in, I'm gonna go ahead and add some pimento seeds and Grace cock soup flavoring mix. add a whole pack. I'm gonna mix that in. You wanna mix it in thoroughly. You wanna make sure that that cock soup is dissolved to give your soup the flavor that you're looking for. So at this point now, I'm gonna taste. I powder seasoned the oxtail before I browned them. I've not touched any other seasoning in this pot. So now it's time to season to your palate. Before I do that, the cock soup tends to be a little salty. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and taste before I start salting and seasoning. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going in with generous adobo. This is where your soup comes alive because you get to season it to your palate. This is smoked paprika, and I'm going in with some coarse sea salt. All right, I'm gonna mix that in. Always keep an eye on your Scotch bonnet pepper. You want it floating right on top. You want to keep an eye on it because you don't want it to break and just make your soup fiery, hot and peppery. It's not cool. You want the flavor from the Scotch bonnet pepper, and you want a little bit of that heat, but not the whole thing just dipping in and going and missing. So we'll be back. Okay guys, so we are at the last stretch of this soup, the last about a 5-minute stretch. I want to show you what's going on in here. All right. Ooh, there we go. Yes. Look, nice. Beautiful. Dumpling them cook. I'm ready to go. Here's one of my dumplings, and I'm going to show you that those big chunks are actually falling off the bone. Look at that, falling off. And remember that big chunk of fat that I left on there for flavor? If you get that in your plate, you just take it off. You don't have to eat it. And if you're into eating fat because it satisfies you and keeps you full, go right ahead, up to you. But we kept it in for the added flavor of the oxtail fat. But it look right now, it's falling off the bone. You could just take it off and discard it. And as if this soup didn't have enough, okay? Final. I'm gonna put a can of butter bean to just get that authentic oxtail butter bean combination also added to this soup. But you don't want these butter beans breaking up, so you will add them in the last 5 minutes of cooking. So when you're ready to dish a bowl, you actually have nice, whole, beautiful butter beans. The next time you see this soup, we're going to be plating and serving, and you'll see the presentation. Before we go, maybe I need to do a final taste to make sure it's right, where salt and pepper and all that's concerned. And if you want to, guys, you could, if you don't have enough pepper flavor in your soup, you could break your Scotch bonnet pepper at this point now. Break it at the end of your cooking. I'm gonna go ahead and taste it. Oh yeah. Can't talk to me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't even need for me to break the Scotch bonnet pepper. It has a nice kicked from the cayenne pepper that I used to season the oxtail. So this oxtail soup is ready to go. We'll be back with the final presentation.